I came home to silence, not the usual chaos of laughter, not the thud of toys on the floor. Just silence, broken by muffled sobs. My kids sat on their beds, except their beds weren't in their rooms anymore. They were shoved into the cold basement, their posters torn from the walls, their clothes in boxes. When I asked why, my mother's voice carried down the stairs. "Your brother's son deserves the upstairs. He's the future of this family. Your kids will adjust." My children looked at me, waiting for anger, for rage, for something. But I only smiled and whispered, "Pack your bags." They didn't know what was coming. None of them did. It wasn't the first betrayal. Growing up, I was the placeholder, the shadow standing next to the favorite child, my brother. He was the golden boy. Straight A's, praised. Failure, excused. Me, invisible. When I had kids, I thought things might change. Surely they'd see innocence in small faces. Surely they wouldn't repeat history. But I was wrong. It started small. Gifts for my brother's son, nothing for mine. Photos of him displayed, while mine gathered dust in drawers. Excuses, always excuses. And now they had moved my children, flesh of my flesh, into a basement like they were unwanted guests. That was the last line they would ever cross. I didn't scream, didn't fight. That's what they expected. Chaos they could dismiss as overreaction. Instead, I went upstairs, kissed my nephew on the head, and told my brother's wife the rooms looked lovely. My parents smiled, smug, thinking I had accepted my children's place beneath their golden grandson. But that night, while they celebrated upstairs, I started planning. The next morning, I called a realtor. I wasn't buying a house. I was buying freedom. I had been saving quietly, investing carefully, building what they assumed I never could. Within weeks, the keys were in my hands. A house, bigger than theirs, closer to the beach, with rooms carved in sunlight, not concrete. I never told them. I just packed up my kids, loaded the car, and drove away. When my mother called, shrill and demanding, asking why their basement was empty, I simply said, "You made it clear whose children mattered. Now you'll live with that." But that wasn't enough. Cutting them off was escape. I wanted justice. So I dug deeper. The family business. My father still ran it like a king, convinced his empire was untouchable. But kings fall hardest when they trust the wrong heirs. I knew their weaknesses, knew the contracts, the unpaid loans, the quiet fraud they thought was buried. I had worked there once, remember? They forgot I learned everything by watching. With one phone call to the right auditor, I set the wheels turning. Not lies, just truth. Truth is a weapon sharper than any blade. The investigation hit like a storm. Accounts frozen, partners walking away, and my father, once untouchable, was suddenly begging lawyers to save him. When he called me, voice cracked, asking if I knew anything, I simply said, "I protect my children the way you should have protected me." Then I hung up. The final blow came months later. We were invited to a wedding, a cousin's. The family gathered, still pretending nothing had changed. My parents avoided me, avoided my children. But whispers of their downfall spread through every table. At dinner, my brother boasted, as always, about his son. My parents nodded, clung to their golden boy like a shield against reality. That's when my daughter, bright, brave, no longer the child who cried in a basement, stood and said, "Dad, can I tell them where we live now?" I nodded. She smiled and said, "We have our own house, with windows bigger than this room, and I never want to sleep in a basement again." The table went silent. My parents' faces drained of color. My brother's smirk faltered. I just raised my glass. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't break you, it forges you. They thought they could bury my children in the dark. Instead, they lit a fire in me that burned their kingdom to ash. Now, when I walk through the halls of our home, hear my kids laughing in rooms filled with sunlight, I feel no regret, only clarity. They taught me what family should never be. And in return, I taught them what happens when you mistake silence for weakness. The last time my parents called, begging to see the kids, I listened quietly. Then I said the same words I whispered that night in the basement. Pack your bags. But this time, I added, and don't come back.